the impact on local police departments who say having the trust of their communities is critical to good policing. Chief J. Thomas Manger is president of the Major Cities Chiefs Association. He's also chief of police for Montgomery County, Maryland, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. It's nice to have you with us, Chief.
Good to be here.
It seems to me that some of the big concerns for many policing organizations is how do you deal with a population of immigrants that are afraid to come to you about crime if they believe you're also an arm of immigration?
That's exactly the issue that every police chief in large urban jurisdictions are dealing with. And I know that in my case, we've got probably, we're 1/3 of our residents were born in someplace other than the United States. So we've got a lot of immigrants in our jurisdiction.
Which probably means a lot of mixed status people.
Absolutely.
A family member who's an American citizen, somebody else who's got a green card, somebody else who's a resident, somebody else who's not undocumented.
Exactly. Every one of those residents, if they are the victim of a crime, deserves to have the assistance that we provide them. And I know that especially in particular neighborhoods that have a high number of immigrants living in those neighborhoods, if we don't get people dialing 911, if we don't get people calling us when they're the victim of a crime, if we don't get people willing to come forward as a witness when they know something, that makes those neighborhoods less safe.
What if they think you're an arm of ICE? If you're a woman who's been raped and you're undocumented, you run the risk of, sure, you might be helping catch your assailant, but you also might be getting yourself deported. And
this is why most jurisdictions, and I certainly can speak for my own, have a longstanding policy that we don't ask people about their immigration status. If you're the victim of a crime, there's really little chance of your information making its way to ICE. The way information gets to ICE is through when we arrest someone who has committed an offense where they are going to be fingerprinted. Those fingerprints go to the FBI, they go to DHS. That's where DHS and ICE become aware of folks that have come into our custody. Victims of crime really have nothing to worry about. But then, I can say that, but the fact is, many of these folks don't know that, or they are not sure that.
A flip of that, though, is some people would say, okay, but that's a person who's violating the law. Right, and maybe it's violating the law in terms of documentation, but how are you as police splitting the hairs and saying, okay, it's okay to violate the law this way, but not that way?
There's some folks, and I don't agree with these people, that think that, an individual's lost their right to be a victim because they're here undocumented. And it's like, well, whatever happens to them, it's their fault. Well, that's just not, that's ridiculous. And it's certainly not the way any police department wants to treat its residents. One of the problems that I'm dealing with is that so many of the folks, the community organizations that I deal with every day, some elected officials really have no respect for the mission that ICE has. They think they're an evil agency doing evil things. They're destroying families, all that sort of thing. Well, the fact is they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to enforce immigration law, and I think we need to respect that. But I don't think that means that local police have to take on that responsibility that we've never had. We've never been trained to do it. It's never been our responsibility. Most of the folks that are here undocumented are not committing crimes. And so my concern is if that individual, documented, undocumented, is committing armed robberies, if they're a gang member who, are committing assaults and violent crime, I will work with ICE every day of the week to ensure that they have the information they need to do their job. I just don't want to do their job for them.
Chief Manger, thank you for coming in and talking to us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it.